The first time he saw the red blinking light, his heart nearly stopped. It wasn't just a camera. It was a silent witness to the ugliest parts of his life. And when his daughter's tiny voice cut through the silence, innocent, curious, untainted, "Daddy, who put that camera there?" he realized everything he thought he could hide was suddenly crashing down around him. Before I take you deeper into this emotional journey, I have one humble request. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of change, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. John Miller wasn't always the man people saw walking down the street with tired eyes and a stiff posture. Once he was the kind of father other dads envied. A high-paying corporate job, a picture-perfect suburban home, and a daughter who ran into his arms every evening as though he was her entire world. To little Emily he was a hero. But life has a way of breaking even the strongest of men when the weight of pride, pressure, and silence gets too heavy. It began with stress. Deadlines at work stretched longer than his patience, and arguments at home with his wife turned colder each day. He wanted to provide, to be the man who never failed, but in doing so, he forgot how to be present. Alcohol crept in as a late-night companion. At first it was just one glass of whiskey to calm the nerves. Then two. Soon, Emily would tiptoe past his study at night, clutching her teddy bear, only to hear the clink of ice against glass and her father's weary sighs. But the spiral didn't stop there. Words became sharper in their household. His wife Claire accused him of caring more about work and the bottle than his family. He defended himself with anger, too proud to admit she was right. Nights ended with slammed doors, mornings with cold silences, and in the middle of it all was Emily, a child too young to understand why her once playful, gentle daddy was now a shadow who smiled less and shouted more. One night, in a moment of desperation, Claire installed a small camera in the corner of the living room. She didn't do it out of malice. She did it out of fear. She wanted proof of his late-night outbursts, of his drunken rage, of the way Emily sometimes flinched when he raised his voice too loudly. She wanted something to hold on to, something to show him, something that might wake him up before it was too late. John never noticed the camera. Not until that morning. Emily was 6. She had just woken up in her pink pajamas, her hair tangled like a bird's nest, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She wandered into the living room, rubbed her eyes, and tilted her head at the corner of the ceiling. Then she turned to her father, who was slumped on the couch half asleep, with an empty glass on the coffee table. "Daddy, who put that camera there?" she asked. Her voice was soft, innocent, but to John it was like a thunderclap. His eyes darted upward, and there it was, the tiny black lens, blinking red, silently judging him. His heart pounded, not from fear of being caught, but from the sudden awareness of what that meant. His wife didn't trust him. His home wasn't a safe place. His little girl, the person he loved most in the world, had noticed something was wrong. That moment tore him open. He couldn't explain it to Emily, not without unraveling truths too heavy for her little shoulders. He just sat there, staring at her, tears burning behind his eyes, while she waited for an answer that never came. The following days were worse. Every time Emily looked at him, he felt the weight of that question. Every sip of alcohol burned deeper, every argument with Claire echoed louder, and every silent dinner felt like a grave being dug for the life they once had. He hated himself, but hate wasn't enough to make him change. Not yet. The breaking point came a week later. John had stumbled home late, reeking of alcohol, muttering excuses about work. Emily was asleep on the couch waiting for him. She had drawn a picture, stick figures of a smiling daddy, mommy, and Emily holding hands under a bright sun. On top, in her clumsy handwriting, she had scribbled, "In my family." The picture slipped from her small hands as she slept. John picked it up, staring at the happy faces she imagined, faces that no longer resembled their reality. For the first time in years, he sobbed uncontrollably. He wasn't the man in that picture. He wasn't the hero she thought he was. He was breaking her heart, and she was too young to even understand why. That night, he sat on the kitchen floor, head in his hands, shaking as memories flooded back. The way Emily used to squeal with joy when he carried her on his shoulders, the bedtime stories, the way she once whispered, "I love you, Daddy," as though it was the most sacred truth in the universe. He realized he was losing Al. Of it. Not because of bad luck, not because of circumstances, but because of him. The next morning John checked himself into a rehabilitation program. It wasn't easy, it wasn't glamorous, it was humiliating and raw. He faced his demons head-on, the shame, the pride, the anger, the addiction. He had to strip himself down to nothing before he could rebuild. And through every painful session, every sleepless night, every craving that clawed at his resolve, he thought of one thing: Emily's question. That small, innocent voice asking about the camera had cut through his denial like a knife. Months passed. Recovery wasn't a straight road. There were setbacks, moments of weakness, but John clung to the image of his daughter's smile. Slowly he began piecing himself together. He attended counseling, apologized to Claire, rebuilt trust brick by fragile brick. He learned to put down the bottle and pick up his daughter's crayons instead, coloring with her, listening to her stories, showing up in ways he hadn't in years. Emily noticed the difference before anyone else. One evening she looked up at him as he read her a bedtime story. Her tiny fingers curled around his and she whispered, "Well, you're smiling again, Daddy." That was the moment John knew he was on the right path. Not perfect, not easy, but right. The camera remained on the ceiling for a long time, but John didn't see it as a threat anymore. He saw it as a reminder, the turning point. He often thought back to that morning, to the way Emily's innocent question had saved his life. She hadn't meant to, she was just curious, but her words had pierced the fog he was drowning in and shown him what truly mattered. Years later, when Emily was old enough to understand, John told her the truth. He told her how her little question had been the spark that forced him to face his mistakes and change. Tears filled her eyes, and she hugged him tightly. "I just wanted my daddy back," she whispered. And in that moment he realized she had never stopped believing in him, even when he had stopped believing in himself. Life wasn't perfect after that. It never is. But it was real, honest, and full of love. John became the father Emily deserved, not because he was flawless, but because he had learned that change begins the moment you decide the people you love are worth more than the things that destroy you. And all of it began with one question. So, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope, and subscribe to the channel for more such powerful and life-changing stories. Your engagement helps us keep telling stories that matter. Before we end, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small moment or question in your life that changed everything? Please share it in the comments. I'd be honored to read your stories, because sometimes the smallest voices ask the biggest questions, and sometimes those questions save lives.